Hello once again YouTube. Today I'm going to give my thoughts on the skills in pd2. Yes, it's another payday video, so welcome. I'm just going to outline how I would build different things, maybe stuff to look out for that might be very helpful, stuff maybe to avoid as well. So we'll start off with the medic tree. I'll just try and go over these quickly. I'll probably miss little details here and there, but if I went through everything it might be like a couple hours long video, so I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible. Now with the medic tree, it's very nice to either build into first aid kits, or you can also build into doctor bags. Now there's a lot of debate in the payday community whether to take quick fix or painkillers. Now both of these skills have their uses. Some of them are more situational than others, such for example painkillers can be very situational since it depends on someone to go down to use it. And you also need to be the one to revive them, otherwise it's wasted. If you're solo, it's not even worth taking because I don't believe the bots can get the damage resistance anyway, which is why I'll usually take quick fix over painkillers because it's just a bit more useful. It's got more situations where it'll always work. For example, you'll always get the 10% damage reduction for 2 minutes. Whereas the painkiller's skill can only be active for 5 seconds, which honestly isn't fantastic because in 5 seconds, is anything really going to happen? Unless you go down in the middle of a wide open area, you're most likely not going to be shot anyway for 5 seconds. And if you are going down in a wide open area, why? Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to run out into the middle of the open because, yes, of course, you're probably going to go down. Now there are alternatives to painkillers as well. For example, if you're reviving someone, you could just drop them a first aid kit. So revive them, they'll use the first aid kit, get full health, and there you are. Or you could even use something like Hacker ACM stun. Just stun all the cops around the area so they can't even fire at you. Or even Kingpin, just take all the heat off the player. You could also use something like flash grenades, just stun everyone in the area. So yes, that's why I'll usually spec into quick fix. I don't really very often take painkillers, just because I really feel that painkillers is way too situational to be worth it. Even if you're going for medbags, like, a lot of people will say it's a sin to get quick fix for medbags because it's only 10% damage reduction and you have to use a medbag. But then again, you're always going to get that damage reduction for 2 minutes. So it's a win-win either way. You've always got that damage reduction handy. The basic version of quick fix, don't get it for medbags. Like, it is a waste to just get the basic version. If you have to get the basic version, use first aid kits for it. Now Inspire, it's a very nice skill. There's a lot of debate in the community as well about this one because it's considered very OP. Some community members even just outright want to remove it altogether, just because it's so broken of a skill. You run up to someone, even through walls, and just revive them, just by shouting. It actually did get a nerf because it's got a cooldown now of 20 seconds, but even then, 20 seconds is actually less than your bleed out time. So if somebody goes down and then goes for a chain down or something, just get them right back up again. Now Inspire Ace is a very good skill to get, for example with painkillers, because if you're reviving someone out in the open, you'll likely be running Inspire Ace. Otherwise, you might end up going down if you try to revive them in the open. If you're on something like overkill difficulty, don't even worry about it. If you're on Death Sentence, definitely take Inspire Ace, it helps your teammates. Death Wish, kind of hit and miss. You can go without, I'll usually not bother with Inspire Ace, only on builds that really rely heavily on helping your team. That's probably one of the only situations I'll see Painkillers being useful. Use an Inspire Ace in the wide open, because you're probably going to get shot, but those situations should hopefully be avoided. Like if you're going down, try not to make it in the middle of a wide open area, because it's going to make things very hard for your team to revive you either way. Now going on to Forced Friendship in the controller tree. This one obviously just more cable ties, it's very nice. The Ace version, damage absorption, it's not really worth it, unless you're speccing into a damage absorption build like you've got Maniac or something as your perk deck. Otherwise, 6 damage absorption I believe it is. Actually no, it's 4 damage absorption, it's even worse. It's not going to do a lot at all. That's basically only 4 damage that you can absorb, and if you think about it, a Deathwish enemy deals around 60 to 70 damage at close range. So yeah, it's not usually worth it to waste this skill. You go into Jokers. Jokers, very handy indeed. Don't just take a basic one, however, that'll be a waste of points. If you're getting a Joker, definitely run Partners in Crime Ace. It'll give you Joker a lot more damage reduction, and you'll keep it on the map a lot longer for your buffs to work. You can get 2 Jokers as well if you want with the Confidence skill. However, 1 Joker is usually just enough on its own to get your buffs and everything, and while having 2 Jokers is nice, it's not always necessary to do this, because you'll often find that your Joker will live throughout the entire heist anyway. And even if your Joker dies, it's very simple to get another one. Just shoot an enemy or melee him, whatever, then just shout your whatever phrases, and there you are, you've got another Joker. That's why I'll usually just leave it with 1 Joker. I'll probably spec into Stockholm Syndrome as well. Very useful skill. It saved my ass more times than I can count. It's obviously a great way to keep civilians on the map. As soon as I run into a heist, if I've got a loud gun in Stockholm Syndrome, I'll just shoot the gun, all the civilians go down, and you've got them all secured pretty much. Then on the Ace version, the cops won't rescue them. Well, they will, but your civilians won't actually run anywhere. So you'll always have civilians on the map in case anyone needs a custody trade. Plus, as well, you can get yourself out of custody one time during a heist, even during assault, or if the captain is present. It's very good, especially if your teammates are bad at reviving or you're solo. It definitely is worth it to invest into this skill, especially for those clutch moments. Now, Hostage Taker, also a very nice skill. Gives you natural health regeneration. Even if you're taking a perk deck with health regeneration already, this can just help boost it even more. So either way, it's a good choice. But yeah, Hostage Taker, very nice skill indeed. Now, going on to the Sharpshooter tree, I don't really often use snipers because they're so slow in this game and there's always a lot of enemies coming at you at the same time. However, if you do spec into snipers or even single shot rifles, I would advise maybe getting Marksman Ace, Aggressive Reload Ace, and then obviously Graze if you're using a sniper. The only bad thing about single shot rifles is that they can't benefit from Graze, and they also can't benefit from the Oppressor tree since it's automatic weapons, but we'll get to that later. Ammo efficiency is very nice, especially for weapons like the Thanatos, which have very low ammo economy. Rifleman, it's okay. Movement speed isn't changed while aiming down sights. I don't usually see much need for this though, because if you're using a sniper you might be stood still. And the extra zoom, while it's nice, it's not really necessary. Now going into Enforcer, this is where the shotgun skills come into play. Now shotguns are very nice weapons in this game if you get the right skills for them. In the basic form, they're not the best, honestly, but it also depends on how you build them with ammo types and everything like that. For example, if you spec into poison rounds for your shotgun, you don't even need the overkill skill, because the poison rounds on their own are usually enough to kill an enemy in one shot. So I'll usually spec into shotgun CQB just to get reload speed. Shotgun impact if you need, sometimes it's not needed. It depends, because shotguns now, they have damage fall off, so out of range enemies might need shotgun impact for that extra damage. Close by is very nice for magazine shotguns, especially if you've got an automatic fire like the Grims for example. Close by comes in very handy indeed with those 15 extra shells. The hip fire rate usually isn't worth it in my opinion. Some shotguns could possibly benefit from it, but it's very minute. Far away is usually a nice skill I'll take. If I'm taking the poison shotgun for example, I'd usually build my shotgun tree like this with far away, just because of the accuracy bonus to get those snipers that might be a bit hard to reach. The increased effective range can be useful. If you're using poison rounds again though, it's usually not needed, and if you're using fletchette rounds, it's not really needed either. Or even AP rounds, since they all increase effective range, apart from the poison ones. But yeah, shotguns are pretty weird in this game. You gotta know what you're building for, and if you don't build it right, it could end up not really working out very well for you. If I'm taking normal ammo for the shotgun, I'll usually get overkill just to boost the damage a bit, since the extra damage from poison or fire from Dragon's Breath rounds isn't going to be present. Now going into the tank tree, this is where you'll get your armor recovery from. So the first skill, 15% armor recovery, it's very nice. Transporter or Die Hard, either of these are good choices. Usually people would spec more into Die Hard, because Transporter, while it has its moments, you could just literally move further along with the bag, rather than trying to throw them further. And especially Bullseye. Bullseye is a very nice skill in this tree. I'd usually only ace it for things like Anarchist builds, just because it helps you get your armor back a lot faster. Although the ace version does work in other builds as well, because obviously you're getting more armor back, but you might need a couple of headshots to actually make it count on things like Death Wish. Since enemies deal so much damage, it could probably be shot off in one shot anyway. Shotgun, very nice skill. Armor recovery increased by 25%. And it also gives your weapons chance to knock back shield enemies. I don't usually like this skill just because it's only a chance to work, and it's only 100% chance for melee weapons. So you could be shooting and you might roll unlucky like 5 times in a row, and yeah, by that time the shield's probably shot you down. So honestly, if I'm fighting shields, I'd usually take a shield killer weapon, something like the AP pistol, or I might take Dragon's Breath shotgun rounds, something like that. You could even use snipers if you wanted. There's plenty of shield counters out there to look for. You could even use explosive arrows as well, or even a grenade launcher. Going into Iron Man, obviously, very nice, 30% increased armor value. If you're using this on Death Sentence, I'd be very careful about values you're looking for, just because Iron Man could boost your armor, yes, but it could still have the same amount of shots into your armor for it to break. So you need to be very careful with breakpoints on Death Sentence, but for Death Wish, it's usually a nice option to have. Bit more armor allows you to tank more shots, so it's a win-win scenario. Not every build needs it, but if you're going into armor, definitely looking to get an Iron Man. Another quirk with it as well, that if you use an Anarchist on Death Sentence, you only need Iron Man to get 2-shot armor. You don't even need to worry about getting a convert, because it already boosts your values above 225. That's only if you use a light vest with Anarchist though. If you use the suit, you can't utilise this, which is why I'll often use the light vest when using Anarchist in Death Sentence. Now going on to Ammo Specialist, obviously this is where you're going to get more ammo from. I'll usually ace Scavenger just for a bit more ammo. There's only a certain amount of ammo boxes that can be on the map, but Scavenger makes them spawn faster, so you'll get more chances to pick up ammo rather than having it all the way across some open field somewhere. Usually when I'm in this tree, I'll spec into bullet storm, and then obviously extra lead for more ammo bags. I wouldn't usually bother about saw skills unless I absolutely needed it. And then obviously there's fully loaded as well, that just increases your ammo capacity by 25% and gives you a chance to pick up throwables. The throwable pickup is okay, but it's nothing really too special unless you absolutely rely on throwables for your build. And the extra ammo as well is it's okay if you've got low ammo economy, but otherwise I wouldn't worry about it. Now going into engineer, this is where your sentry gun skills are. It's also where you can get jack of all trades for 2 deployables at the same time. It's very handy as well, especially if you're running first aid kits, because jack of all trades increases deployable interaction and deploy time by 100%. This means that if you're in a really dire situation, you can deploy them as fast as possible. But other than that, it's just a great skill because you can take first aid kits and doctor bags, or you can take trip mines or whatever you fancy. Now, if you are building in for sentry skills, I would usually take third law ace for the extra protection from the shield. Really comes in handy, as well as eco sentry for more health. I'll get the sentry targeting package as well, and then I'll get tower defense. I wouldn't really bother with engineering at all, because silent sentry guns, well, yeah, you could use it to kill enemies, they're not fantastic at doing so, and loud sentries are usually better just because they act as a distraction. It takes all the heat off you and focuses on them instead. So for that reason, I wouldn't really bother with a silent sentry, because if you're using sentry guns to try and kill things, it's probably not going to work out very well for you. If you're using them as a distraction and cover fire though, that's a fantastic way to spec into. The AP rounds on engineering as well is sort of a trap, because it sounds good on paper, but if you think about it, it's going to take a very long time for your sentry gun to run out of ammo, and if it's under fire by, say, a bulldozer or something, they're going to kill it before it runs out of ammo. Once it does run out of ammo, all the cops will stop shooting at it, so automatic fire is usually the better option. Now, going on to Breacher, this is where you'll get your drill skills and trip mines. I'll sometimes spec into drill skills depending on how I'm building my setup. Kickstarter for the automatic drill restarting and the melee restarting is nice. I wouldn't usually take it though. I don't very often spec any more than the first 2 tiers of drill skills, just for silence drills, faster interaction and faster drill time as well. If I'm getting trip mines, I'll usually get both of these skills ace, more firepower and combat engineering, just to give them a bit more oomph. I would sometimes get fire trap depending on what I wanted. It's a bit of a weird skill this one though, because if you use fire trap and have a trip mine on a wall somewhere, it'll cover only half of the corridor and the other half of the fire will be going into the wall. So you'll usually have to deploy them really weirdly, like in the middle of the floor somewhere, and there's chances that the enemies can just walk around it. You have to be quite strategic if you're using fire trap, so it could be even worth it just to take these 2 skills alone. Now going into Oppressor, this is where the automatic rifles and SMGs come into play. If you've got a very high accuracy rifle, I wouldn't bother with fire control at all, because the extra weapon accuracy obviously won't be needed. So spec into heavy impact instead for a stagger chance, which is always nice to stun lock enemies, especially if using something like an LMG build. Faster firing weapons are usually better for heavy impact, more shots means more stagger chance. You can get lock and load aced if you want for extra reload time on your automatic weapons. However, the speed pull mag exists, which already does this anyway. Probably better off just to take the speed pull mag and save yourself some points. Obviously weapons that can't use the speed pull mag will need lock and load ace if you require it. Now Surefire is a very nice skill, especially if paired with body expertise, just because obviously enemies wear armour, so if you're shooting for the body, it's not going to go through unless you have Surefire ace. There are some points in the body you can shoot, but otherwise, if you are going for body expertise, I would recommend getting Surefire Ace. It doesn't matter as well whether you get the basic version or the Ace version of body expertise, depending on what you want to go for. If you're good at headshots, I would just keep it at basic, just for those shots that don't quite hit the head. If you're quite bad at headshots, then probably look into acing it, or if you've got a very low accuracy weapon, probably ace it as well, just because you won't be able to hit those headshots as consistently. Obviously as well, if your weapon has quite low accuracy, you might want fire control. Anything probably below 70 accuracy will probably need it, I'd say. Anything over 70 accuracy can probably do without. Going into the ghost tree now with Shinobi, this is where your stealth skills will come into play. If you're going for a stealth build, I'd definitely recommend getting most of these skills in the ace form. Cleaner I wouldn't really worry about, because all it does is allow you to place 2 body bag cases, but if you think about it, you're probably only going to use about 4 body bags in the heist anyway. There's only 4 guards, and if you're using more, you might be killing civilians. You can always get the body bag asset on the map as well, so cleaner in ace form is usually not needed very much. Obviously you have 6 Sense Ace here for extra assets as well. You'll need that to get the body bag asset. Got ECM Overdrive for opening doors, so essentially your ECM jammers can be used as key cards. Got Nimble, where you can disable cameras from looking at you, and you can also lockpick 100% faster. You can lockpick safes as well with this skill. And then ECM Specialist is just an upgrade to your ECMs basically, more jammer duration and more feedback duration as well. And going into Artful Dodger, this tree is what you'd expect, it's where you can get your dodge skills from. You can also get concealment skills here to help you get into dodge. Just if you get Sneaky Bastard, you'll need less than 25 detection risk if you get the ace version, or less than 5 detection risk if you get the basic version. You get Parkour here as well, which increases your speed by a little bit. I'd recommend this for heavy armor builds. While yes, this is the dodge tree, you can benefit with other styles from this as well. So obviously Parkour will just give you a bit more movement with the heavy armor. You get Shockproof Ace here as well, which is quite nice. You can interact with tasers and free yourself from them. If you really hate tasers, it's definitely a good skill to look into. Or even if you're using weapons with quite low ammo magazines, you should look into getting this as well. One of the builds I use has double barrel shotguns as both primary and secondary, so I've only got 2 shots to hit the taser, and if I miss those shots, then the taser's got me. If you've got a very high magazine weapon like an LMG, you've probably got a lot more chance to hit the taser. But we all know how tasers are, they can be far away, they can make you miss all your shots, so it's definitely nice to spec into this. Dianede as well is basically an alternative to heavy impact, although it only works when your armor breaks, and it only works for the first shot on enemies as well. Although it's a 100% chance to stagger enemies from that one shot, but it only works the once. It can be useful if your armor is breaking a lot, like for example if you've got a dodge deck, you're only wearing the suit, so it might come in handy. If you're not speccing into dodge, however, I'd probably just look at getting heavy impact if you want stagger. And then we've got Sneaky Bastard, basically just extra dodge chance, like I said before. Less than 25 detection risk for the ace version, or less than 5 for the basic. Then we get the Silent Killer tree. This is where you can spec into things like optical illusions. If you're running a dodge deck, definitely look at getting this because you'll take less heat, but only if your teammates are nearby. If you're on your own, you're still going to get the same chance to be targeted by enemies. It only works if you're nearby other crew members. You get silencer skills here as well for a bit more accuracy and stability on silenced weapons. Get a lot more damage from crits as well if your build can afford it. If you've got a high detection risk build, you could probably get Unseen Strike, although it's a little bit of a strange skill, that one. It has a cooldown of 4 seconds, but you have to be hit to activate that cooldown, otherwise it won't work. You'd think that you'd get the crit chance for however many seconds, then the cooldown would go on, then you get the crit chance again. But no, Overkill decided to do a patch job, a botched patch job, I should make that clear. So instead of trying to fix it, they just put down at the bottom here that taking damage resets the cooldown timer. It never was originally meant to do that, but they just decided, hey, we can't be bothered to fix it, so we just slap that on instead. High value target is also very nice for special damage. If you're having problems with specials, I'd definitely look at getting this. Especially for doses as well, you definitely want that extra DPS. It's not always necessary to get this, especially if you've already got something like crits, but it really does help. Now, going into the last tree, Fugitive. This is where you can get your pistol skills from, it's also where you can get Akimbo. Now, Akimbo doesn't just work with pistols, even though it's in the pistol tree. It works with any Akimbo, so Akimbo SMGs, Akimbo shotguns, anything like that. It's very handy, especially if you need the extra 50% ammo capacity. You can get increased magazine sizes with gun nut, as well as 50% increased fire rate. Definitely good for those slow pistols. You get Desperado for extra accuracy as well, and reload speed. Definitely useful for a pistol to get that extra 50% reload. There's one-handed talent as well, which just flat out increases your pistol damage. And then there's Trigger Happy, probably the most OP DPS skill in the game, because it increases pistol damage by 120%. Especially if you've got an automatic pistol, it'll just keep the buff active all the time. If you've got a slow pistol like a revolver or something, probably get the Ace version, especially if you don't have the extra fire rate with gun nut. But usually, in my experience, revolvers don't usually need Trigger Happy because they are quite powerful on their own. Now, going into the Revenant tree, if you get 9 lives, Ace, that's usually the meta for 1 down, since it just gives you an extra down, even though the mode's called 1 down. I wouldn't worry too much about these tier 2 skills unless you're using something specific like Stoic. You can get up your go Ace for extra health when revived, even though it's only a little bit if you're on higher difficulties. It'll just help you take more shots and avoid chain downs. But otherwise, I wouldn't worry too much about them. Now, Feign Death, very very nice skill. It's kind of an alternative to Stockholm Syndrome, except it's not as good because it's only a chance to get yourself up. So if you're going down a lot, you might benefit from this because it'll just keep you in the fight. I wouldn't worry too much about Swan Song because all it does is delay the inevitable. You're going to go down and Swan Song isn't going to save you. You could just use something like a first aid kit as well, drop one at your feet and use the uppers skill. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about Swan Song. You can't even use meds while active in it, so it's kind of a bad skill in my opinion. Then you've got Messiah as well, which will just help you get up if you do happen to go down. However, it does kind of promote early medbag usage, so I'd be aware of that. Try not to use all your meds in one go. When I'm making builds, I wouldn't usually even bother with it. I'd just stick with Stockholm Syndrome because that keeps you in the fight. Since it's kind of like a Messiah anyway, because you can get yourself out of custody once. Except you can't replenish that charge, unlike Messiah. It is very very expensive to spec into Messiah as well. Then you've got the Brawler tree. This is where you can spec into Bloodthirst for melee power. I wouldn't even really bother with Pumping Iron, I'm not even sure why it's there. It's only 100% more damage against enemies, which is 1 kill into Bloodthirst. So I don't see any point at all of why you would need to take this skill. Just spec into Bloodthirst, get 1 kill and you've already got Pumping Iron. And Bloodthirst goes all the way up to 1600% as well, which is fantastic for things like those. You can get Berserker here as well for sacrificing health for more damage. If you're not too worried that much about your health in a build, it might be a good idea to spec into Berserker. And then go into Frenzy as well, which will always make sure you have that Berserker state on. I wouldn't worry about Berserker though. If you've got a health regen build, it's kind of a waste. And speaking of Frenzy, I would always ace it. I wouldn't even bother with the basic version because it's only 10% damage reduction, and honestly it's not fantastic. 25% is a lot better. Well guys, that's just my thoughts on skills. I hope I taught you something. I probably missed quite a few things, but I'll try and cover more specific skills and builds in the future. I'll just quickly go over one of my builds as well. I'll go into the hacker dodge build I made. Obviously dodge build, so I spec'd into first aid kits. Didn't really bother with Ace Inspire because it's mostly for Death Wish, although it can be used on Death Sentence as well. Just got myself a single Joker because that's all you need for the buffs to keep active. Got myself Stockholm Syndrome, obviously very nice skill, as well as Hostage Taker just to boost Hacker's health regeneration. Since this build uses poison ammo for shotguns and incendiary ammo, I didn't bother with overkill, just kept the nice basic shotgun skills here. Extra reload speed, little bit extra damage, and obviously far away for those snipers. I got myself Bullseye as well, just for a bit of armor gating, because obviously it's very nice, goes hand in hand with dodge decks. If you dodge a bullet, hit a headshot, get some armor back, you might lose that armor, but then you might dodge again, and then keep hitting headshots, and just keep armor gating. Got my Skull Scavenger Ace for a bit more ammo, because shotguns have usually low ammo economy. And then I got the drill skills here, just nice and basic, don't even worry too much about this tree. And then since it's a dodge deck, I got Sneaky Bastard in the basic form, since I only have 4 detection risk. Got Duck and Cover Ace for a bit more dodge chance. Shockproof to deal with tasers and dire need, just in case I need it. I got crits as well, since it's a low detection risk and I can afford to invest into it. Got myself Optical Illusions for a bit more concealment, and High Value Target for more damage against specials as well. Didn't bother with anything in the Fugitive tree, although if you need, you could get rid of Shotgun Impact and Drill Sergeant, just to get 9 lives Ace if you're using something like 1 down. To be honest as well, crits aren't even needed on this build, just because the poison shotgun can kill things in one shot at close range without crits. So if your build does have very powerful weapons that can kill in one shot, it might even be worth just taking crits off. The only reason I've got it is because shotguns have very low range, so if it's out of range and I get a crit, that'll just help boost that damage a bit more. Well guys, I hope you had fun listening to me talk about skills. I'll see you in the next one.